croissant.
Welcome back, I'm Croissant, and this is going to be a different video. When I created this channel, I wanted to talk about games that I liked and was excited about, but the last few weeks, it's been harder and increasingly difficult to become excited about games with certain things going on. And last week it was PlayStation, and this week it's Xbox, and it's been the industry overall since I'd say 2023, 2022. It's been really rough for a lot of people. And I wanted to go into this article today because with all the Microsoft layoffs, it seems like we're starting to see more and more of the story of why does everything suck so bad, especially with Xbox. So I wanted to go through this article from Bloomberg that came out yesterday on July 7th, written by Cecilia D'Anastasio. She does great work over at Bloomberg. She's done a lot of video game industry news. I really recommend checking her out if you have a Bloomberg.com subscription. Thankfully, I got this article for free. I could read this just fine. I did read through it already, and I have some notes prepared, but yes. So I'll have it somewhere over here maybe, or I'll pop it up. So the headline for this one is Behind Xbox's Big Layoffs, a Streaming Strategy That Failed. So Game Pass. Game Pass failed Xbox. Microsoft Corporation's Xbox spent nearly $80 billion in the last decade on deals that would give it popular video game titles like Call of Duty and Skyrim, betting that gamers would flock to its Netflix-like subscription service, offering hundreds of options for endless play. On Monday, being July 6th, on Monday, the company acknowledged that strategy hasn't worked out. Xbox said it would lay off 3,200 employees, 20% of its staff, and let go 5 game studios in an effort to reset. Crazy. And those studios, it's, so the 5 studios were Double Fine, behind Psychonauts, and most recently Kiln, which had a huge piece in, an Xbox showcase earlier this year as one of it was the surprise game. Compulsion Games, which also did South of Midnight. Both of those Double Fine and Compulsion games are returning to being indie. They're not going to be tied in with Xbox anymore. Undead Labs, which is known for State of Decay 3, that was upcoming. It is planned to continue under a new owner. Ninja Theory and Arcane, those are the last 2. Ninja Theory, the Hellblade games. Their first game was Kung Fu Chaos. I did a video about that. There's going to be a new owner of Ninja Theory, and then Arcane is kind of up in the air because they're dealing with the French government. They were making Blade, which a lot of people, including myself, are excited about. Don't really know what's going to happen with that. Maybe it'll go to PlayStation, maybe... Also, so 3,200 employees. This is just the latest in several rounds of layoffs over the last few years. We saw a huge round of layoffs after the Activision deal, where Game Informer referenced a different Bloomberg report that said they were laying off 10,000 employees, which I'll leave all the links to these things in the description, as always. Whenever I talk about articles, I'll leave it in the description. 10,000 people, which seemed like a lot. I don't know if that number is correct, but that's what they said in the article, and it hasn't been changed. This mostly affected 343 Studios employees, so Halo, and some employees at Bethesda. Not sure what the breakdown was, but it was more heavily skewed toward 343. Then another round was 2 years ago in 2024, after the merger was completed with Activision, and that saw an additional 1,900 layoffs. So they're trying to make it look great for the stakeholders, I guess, to justify spending $69 billion on Activision to absorb Call of Duty, Diablo. This is just devastation after devastation after devastation when these big corporations get all these acquisitions and then they got to get rid of everybody, even though there's still a lot of talented people making games. So it's really depressing. Next paragraph. What started as an attempt to boost Xbox's last place position among console makers after Sony Group Corporation's PlayStation and Nintendo Company Switch ended in a glut of overspending, leaving Xbox bloated with studios, staff, and too many games people didn't want to play. I feel like they're talking about Redfall and maybe Starfield, but Starfield sold pretty well. Also, this has been a problem for Xbox since the original Xbox came out in 2001. They've constantly been chasing Nintendo and PlayStation, especially PlayStation. Like, it's always been the third. It's never been the first or the second. There was a brief moment during the 360 era where it was in the lead, but for the majority of its lifespan, Xbox has consistently been chasing PlayStation and Nintendo. And I wish it wasn't like that, because I was an Xbox kid growing up. Original Xbox, 360. I got an Xbox One when it came out for Christmas that year in 2013. And I have a Series X. So I have a lot of heart in the Xbox brand. Like, I love Xbox. But they just keep shitting the bed. In a letter to employees, Xbox's new CEO, Asha Sharma, said the video game business is not healthy. We all knew that. She recognized that Xbox lost the plot by not focusing on its core strategy and said it's now facing the most severe hardware crisis in its history. Because everything was an Xbox for a while there, and there was no reason to own an Xbox. And there still isn't really a reason to own an Xbox, because you can just load up Game Pass on your PC and play games that way. So you don't really need to have an Xbox anymore. She's right. She's absolutely correct in this. When Xbox launched its Game Pass subscription service in 2017, executives set a goal of reaching 77 million subscribers by fiscal year 2026, which just ended last month, according to a document published during a lawsuit contesting Microsoft's 2023 purchase of Activision Blizzard. Today, the platform has just 30 million subscribers, according to a person familiar with the matter, 4 million fewer than it did when the company last publicly shared data in 2024. The Wall Street Journal reported earlier on the subscriber numbers. Game Pass, they put so much into Game Pass, and it just hasn't panned out in the way that they were expecting, because it was supposed to be, it's like the Netflix of games. And you can play all these different games at any time, and you're just paying like this a little bit, and then they raise the price. But we'll get into that in a minute. Employees have been growing concerned that the number of Game Pass subscribers had peaked, according to two former employees. Later, millions of customers canceled their subscriptions after Game Pass announced last October it was raising prices by 50%. It has since gone down, but they were raising the prices. Underlying Game Pass's problem was a central flaw, according to the people. While consumers might be willing to pay a monthly fee to Netflix to stream thousands of TV shows and movies, most gamers don't take the same approach, preferring to stick with a handful of favorite games they play on repeat. Research from Circana shows that the majority of US gamers buy 2 games at most per year, and a third of the market doesn't even purchase one. 33% of people that play video games do not purchase even one video game a year, because you don't have to buy a game anymore. You can play Marvel Rivals, you can play Fortnite, you can play Roblox, you can play a plethora of free-to-play games on your phone, you can play gacha games, which, yes, those games do have microtransactions, but you're not buying a game. You're spending little bits here and there within those games to get cosmetics, to get different characters, to get whatever you want within that game that they're selling. You're not buying a game. You're buying small pieces. That was crazy to me when I heard that, but this is pretty much the thesis of the whole article. Xbox put a lot of their eggs in the Game Pass basket, and while I've enjoyed the service, and many other people have as well, it's not the best business-wise and has not made the type of money for Xbox, considering how many players they've been able to keep and what they projected to have. It's just not there. What research on player behavior was done for Game Pass to make Xbox think we can go along with this? And did they think that they could change player opinion based on what they were selling? Because it's just not working. I wonder if they thought that if they had a certain amount of games, or if they bought Activision Blizzard and had Call of Duty on there, and Wolfenstein and Skyrim and all these other games that they've acquired, would that be enough to sway people to buy the service, buy an Xbox, or buy the service on PC and get in on this? Because it doesn't seem like, if this is how many people are buying games a year, why would you want to buy a service and pay $20 a month if you're only going to play one game or 2 games a year? Like 2 games a year, if you're buying 2 games a year, that's roughly $120 or $140, depending on the price of the game now. But that doesn't justify the spend of a year's long worth of Game Pass to me. Sharma, who previously held roles at Instacart and Meta Platforms, was appointed to the position in February, chosen by Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella for her consumer expertise to revive a brand that had been a distant number 3 in the console market. She replaced the division's longtime leader Phil Spencer, who left along with the unit's president Sarah Bond. Bond had led Xbox's Game Pass strategy, which involves spending $1 billion a year to get third-party games on the service. That's a lot of money. $1 billion a year? How long was she president for? Like 2 years? That's at least $2 billion. $1 billion is crazy, but it's at least $2 billion for sure. And of course, Phil Spencer, he had a hard job. He came on after the Xbox One debacle where there was the DRM, packed-in connect, always online, you can't share the game, and he had to clean up that mess. So he kind of got them out of that hole a little bit, but then they just kept buying studios, and they were always saying every year, they're like, look at all these studios we got. We're going to make so many games. And then when they did have games, they weren't great. Like Redfall, that one was a dumpster fire on release. Starfield was mediocrely received. It wasn't the best game that people were expecting from Bethesda. And then everything is an Xbox. Like, no reason to buy an Xbox. So you're not really helping. And then $1 billion a year. So they're in the hole. Sharma does not have an easy job, and I don't know what the right answer is, but it doesn't look good to lay this many people off and get rid of this many people. But it's like, what do you do when the previous people have spent so much money trying to acquire these studios and put out these games and make people want to buy an Xbox, kind of, but you don't want them on an Xbox because it's going to be on PlayStation and you can play an Xbox on your toaster because your toaster's an Xbox. It's a lot of bullshit. Executives at Xbox hope the $20 monthly Game Pass Ultimate subscription, which rose to $30 last October before Xbox reverted back to $23 in April 2026, would draw users into its content ecosystem and eventually boost sales. Spencer, who helmed Xbox for more than a decade, made other efforts to broaden Xbox beyond its core console audience, aiming at PC and mobile gamers with acquisitions that included beloved indie game makers like Ninja Theory, Double Fine, and Obsidian. During the pandemic-fueled boom in gaming, Xbox made even splashier investments, including the $69 billion purchase of Activision Blizzard, the maker of hit games Call of Duty and Candy Crush in 2023, and the $7.5 billion purchase of ZeniMax Media, the publisher behind Fallout and The Elder Scrolls, in 2021. Game Pass subscribers enjoyed access to those studios' titles the day they came out for no added fee. That was one of the reasons I really enjoyed Game Pass. I didn't feel like buying a Call of Duty every year, and there were other games I wanted to play, so that's how I would check out Call of Duty and see if I liked it. Candy Crush, but I did play Fallout and The Elder Scrolls on Game Pass, and I played Starfield when it came out on Game Pass, and the Oblivion Remastered on Game Pass too, on day one. Doom the Dark Ages as well. Plenty of games that come out day one on Game Pass. Some employees warned that putting in-demand, high-budget games on Game Pass the day they release could devalue them and cannibalize sales of individual, higher-priced copies. It was a controversial decision internally, according to 5 former employees. When Game Pass launched, it was designed to activate back-catalog games without a clear path to potential audiences, not essentially offer hit games at a fraction of the price. Call of Duty, for example, costed $70 before it landed on Game Pass, where for less than half the price, players could access that game and hundreds of others. In 2024, Xbox gave up more than $300 million in sales of Call of Duty on Xbox consoles and PCs, says a person familiar with the matter, and they told that to Bloomberg last year. Instead, PlayStation accounted for 82% of Call of Duty Black Ops 6 sales. That's crazy. Remember when during the Activision FTC back and forth when they were trying to close in on the merger and they were like, are you still going to have the games on PlayStation? Are people like, are you still going to have a competitive nature? Like, are you going to be a monopoly? And they're like, no, we're still going to put the game on PlayStation. This is why. Because if they didn't have this Black Ops game on PlayStation, oh my God, the world would have exploded. Because Call of Duty has been one of the biggest money makers every year for like 15, 16 years now. It's been every year one of the highest selling games. I don't know what it's been like the last like 4-ish years. I just remember seeing year after year after year, Call of Duty breaking records, record number sold of games. $300 billion on Xbox and PC that they lost because of Game Pass. Think about the indies. Like, this is just the cream of the crop, top like the biggest guys. Indies also get a deal because there's no guarantee that their game's going to get found unless it blows up like Among Us or like last year's Schedule 1 or Repo, any of those types of games. There's plenty of indie games that just get a deal on Game Pass and they don't get the money from the copies. It's kind of like a lump sum and they're able to make money that way. But if you get a bunch of downloads, I don't think there's a sliding scale. Like if you get this many downloads, we'll give you this money. Maybe there is, but I don't think that's the case. They get a deal, they're paid, their game's on Game Pass for a year and a half, however long, and then it goes off of Game Pass. If this is how much money the big guys are losing, imagine how much of a hit the indies are taking. By the time the Activision acquisition closed, nearly 2 years after it was announced, Game Pass was already facing difficulties attracting subscribers, according to a person familiar with the matter. The pivot to a subscription model made sense with the rising cost of producing video game consoles. In 2022, Spencer said every Xbox sold lost Microsoft between $100 and $200. Since then, tariffs and demand for artificial intelligence computing have squeezed the market for components. Last month, Microsoft raised the price of the current generation Xbox console for the third time in 13 months. For its next console, codenamed Project Helix, analysts anticipate a more than $1,000 price tag. So historically, Xbox and PlayStation, they've sold their consoles for a loss. That's nothing new, because they expect the games and now the subscriptions to make up the extra revenue. But with the rising costs that they mentioned here, we're starting to see some cracks in that model, because that's like at this point, a lower end PC, like gaming PC. And who is going to pay? Like when the PS4 was announced for $500, people lost their minds. And then now an Xbox Series X, I think, costs $800 and a PS5 Pro costs like close to $1,000. So who is buying a console right now? So it seems like they started putting more eggs in that Game Pass basket because they wanted to make up that difference, because I guess they weren't selling that many games. So they had to go back to, what else can we do here? We can put a back catalog of games on Game Pass. People want to play these games, and then we'll sell. Not working out, unfortunately. In laying out her plan to return to Xbox in February, Sharma said that the new Call of Duty titles would no longer be released to Game Pass subscribers on day one. Xbox's new executive suite, which includes Helen Chang, the former head of Minecraft maker Mojang, former Azure AI Vice President Scott Van Vliet, and metaverse researcher Matthew Ball, now plan to refocus on the Xbox console. Chang was appointed Chief Operating Officer of Xbox amid the restructuring announced on Monday. So, still, they're trying to figure it out over there. This is another direct reversal, by the way, of a Phil Spencer era policy, and just her first few months as the head of Xbox, and it solidifies that this wasn't working. So they got to get back on to selling consoles, because no one's wanted an Xbox console for a while, and they still don't right now. Like, who's going to buy a console for $800? Like, who hasn't already bought a PS5 or an Xbox Series X or a Series S or a PC and updated their components and stuff by this point in the generation? While big multiplayer games will still be available on all the major platforms, Microsoft will make more of its best titles exclusive to Xbox so gamers have a reason to buy its console, which we've already seen, because they were going to put Gears of War Judgment Day, I think is what they called it. The new Gears of War, they were going to put that on PlayStation as well, and now they're not doing that anymore. But the new Halo Combat Evolved remaster, remake, whatever, is going to be on PlayStation. So, just trying to juggle what's going on with these games is badonkadonk, crazy, cuckoo bananas. My brain's breaking thinking. I'm getting a headache, actually, thinking about I need some Tylenol. Going forward, Xbox plans to take a more streamlined approach to games and studios rather than the bigger is better approach. The company will focus more on franchises like Minecraft from Studio Mojang, which had previously operated more or less independently. Profits from Minecraft, considered one of the most successful video games in the world, were used to fund the rest of the gaming portfolio, according to the person familiar with Xbox operations. Now, they're not naming these people, and I understand why, but I don't feel like these people have a reason to lie, and Bloomberg would not be reporting it if they didn't feel like this was true. It's wild to me that that Minecraft has had such staying power in the games industry and continues to print money. Like, it's wild to me that that's what's keeping Xbox afloat. Like, it makes total sense. It makes total sense because they have Minecraft Realms and they have all these new expansions and stuff going on with Minecraft. But to think that that's a big reason why Xbox, and probably Candy Crush too, but Xbox has been okay and has been able to restructure and go through these things and spend all this money because of the money that they're getting from Minecraft. But for for the rest of the gaming portfolio at Xbox, it's Minecraft money? Guys, holy shit. Okay. Oh, there's more on this. Mojang and Candy Crush maker King, the two studios that have the most monthly active players, will report directly to Sharma, she said in her letter on Monday. While ZeniMax will lose its subsidiary Arcane Studios, the company will maintain its focus on successful franchises like Fallout and The Elder Scrolls, with the highly anticipated Elder Scrolls 6 launching in the next few years. So it makes me worry a little bit about the future of Minecraft and Candy Crush. I mean, not that I really care about Candy Crush, but if that's where they're getting a lot of their money is from Minecraft and Candy Crush, and they've been operating independently just fine, what's going to happen when they have to report directly to Sharma and Xbox in a way that they haven't before? And also Arcane. Like, I was mentioning the Blade game earlier, but I get why they're going away or why they're in trouble, because the most recent game they put out was Redfall, and that was a big stinker. We already talked about how much Redfall sucks. We don't need to dwell on that anymore. But what is the future of Arcane? They can make good games. So I don't want to put all the blame on the development studio. I feel like there might be more to blame on Microsoft or Xbox for them to put out more games, which is why Redfall arrived the way it did. But they put out Dishonored 1 and 2, and those were good games. So Arcane has the potential to do that. But I hope they have a chance to redeem themselves from Redfall. If they don't, and they're shuttered, who knows it's just, we're never going to get a Blade game, I guess. And then final paragraph here. In a June interview with Bloomberg, Sharma said that the company had reset Game Pass after an 8-month decline. She said the subscription service has returned to growth and increased retention. Her new goal, she said Monday, is to reach more than 1 billion gamers every day on multiple platforms. So we don't have current numbers. We don't know what that looks like. The most recent numbers we had were like 30 million people on Game Pass. I don't know how they're going to reach 1 billion players when they can't even reach half of a tenth of a billion. If they can't even get halfway to 100 million, how in the world are you going to get to 1 billion unless you're counting Minecraft players and Candy Crush players? Because she said multiple platforms. Candy Crush isn't a Game Pass game. Like, multiple platforms, I don't know what that means. Multiple platforms. Are they going to count? I feel like they could cheese it, but if they're going on Game Pass numbers alone, they couldn't use mobile, right? I don't think they could. It would have to either be Xbox or PC. That's the state of the dumpster fire craziness at Xbox. We are in for a crazy ride the next few years. Rockstar's losing their mind, putting download codes in boxes. PlayStation's not doing any more discs. Xbox doesn't know what it's doing. They're trying to do something. I don't know what they're going to do. I guess we will see how it goes. This was not a very happy video. I don't think I was angry or sad, but it's just not a great state of affairs right now. Next video, I anticipate on talking about GTA 6 and things that I want to see in GTA 6, kind of a GTA 6 wishlist video. Because even with the download code thing, I am excited about the game still. I'm still going to play it. I don't care if that's hypocritical. I'm going to play the game. And there are things I want to see in that game. If you enjoyed the video, click like and subscribe. Tell me in the comments below what your thoughts are. Are you worried about Xbox? Do you even care about Xbox anymore? If you're a PlayStation person, let me know why you paid Xbox below and why PlayStation is better. And if you're a Nintendo fan, I love you too. Goodness, I'll see you next time. Click like and subscribe, and I'll see you later.